Good afternoon and welcome to the May Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, welcome to country. I think Councillor Greg James is an apology. Item 2, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land, which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. Public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. And we welcome Hamish to today. See you back. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020, and these principles are as followed. Councillors are listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 5, apologies. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. The apology from Councillor Greg James be noted and a leave of absence be granted.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that, please? Brophy.
Second that.
Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 6, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. There is a recommendation there. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Spinks.
I will move that the Council 1 confirm the minutes of 23 April 2024 scheduled council meeting with the following change, that item 12.3 corrects the reference to tenderer GVOSS with GOVSS, and 2, confirm the minutes of 7 May 2024 additional council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Summer. Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions, nil received. Councillors, we go over the page to page 8 of the agenda, item 10.1, which is Creative City Grants Program Round 1 2023/2024. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Move that. Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I will move that the Council note the successful applicants awarded funding under delegated authority for Round 1 of the 2023/2024 Creative City Grants Program as follows, and as they are tabled on page 8 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah. Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Absolutely. It is exciting to see these grants being allocated as part of our Creative City strategy. This grants program aims to create the objectives are to support local creative talent, to contribute to the diversity and vitality of creative activity across our region, to encourage active participation in the arts for all, and to strengthen Greater Shepparton's identity as a creative city. This particular grants round, which is round 1 for this particular financial year, and I believe we'll have 2 rounds potentially moving forward. But it is the first time I believe we're seeing these grants come to fruition, and it's been really exciting to see the diversity and creativity, if I will, of the applications for this grant. Unfortunately, only 4 out of the 9 that were submitted were approved in this particular round of funding. The 4 being awarded obviously met the criteria and the criteria of the grants program. So very excited to see those go ahead. Really unique concepts. That is the entire point of the grants round and the grants program, to try and really let creative concepts and programs flourish within our community, and it allows quite a variety of different concepts to come to life with the support of the funding available. Unfortunately, there were 5 that weren't applicable or approved in this particular grant round, and I hope that moving forward we can, and I know that we do this in reflection, support those particular grant applications to understand where they weren't eligible for the funding, and perhaps be able to reapply in future, or be able to look at, because this is quite a new grants program, be able to continue to look at how we can continue expanding the grants eligibility to, because some of the ones that weren't eligible this particular round had really interesting merit, really interesting ideas coming through, and I wouldn't want to see us try to stifle any creative concepts and projects that are coming through in our community. That is definitely the purpose of this grant program. So very excited to see the ones that have been approved in this round and see them come to life over time. And I hope that this can continue moving forward to grow and develop into a grants program that really supports all sorts of eccentric and unique projects for our communities.
Thanks, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, Councillor Spinks has covered it all, but like Councillor Spinks, I'm also very pleased to see the uptake of this grant, and also a bit disappointed to see that 5 applications were not successful. But then there is so much hope there that it really shows that the grants were able to attract attention, and we can do more. And also that our greater Shepparton region can continue to promote its identity as a creative city, which is very important, because amongst all basic needs and dire needs of this region, we also, which includes housing and cost of living and all of that, we also need to pay attention to arts, because it really is something that brings that creates a soul for the city. So for the Greater Shepparton region. So I'm really happy to see that Council is supporting our local creative talent in these grants.
Yeah, Councillor Abdullah. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'm just taking up exactly what Councillor Abdullah said, that, being creative in a creative city, this is what we are. It's only a small amount of funding when you look at the whole budget aspect, and particularly in regards to the arts funding. It is only small, but it is significant for those particular groups who put their hand up. This is a very strong grants program. It was well oversubscribed, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the creative fruits of the artistic labour. I did have, in the lead up to this particular, I did query one particular grant, because it took up nearly 50% of the total of the round one amount that was given. And like any artistic pursuit, it is obviously subjective, but it did tick the boxes in terms of eligibility. And I'm assured that the acquittal of the Splinter contemporary artists will not only tick that box, but will their artwork will, not hopefully, but will be on public display, as was their submission that they endeavoured to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Any closing comments, Councillor Spinks?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 13 of the agenda, item 11.1, contract under delegation for April 2024. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'll move the motion on page 13. That the council note the contracts awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender process for the reporting period, and point 2, note the requests for tenders advertised, but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Spinks.
Oh, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I speaking to the motion? Yeah.
Like to speak to the motion?
Just really quickly, there's only 5 items on this page. 2 of them are contracts that have been awarded, and there's 3 that haven't been. A couple of them are construction type projects, which sound a bit boring, but they're very necessary, and they'll no doubt be well accepted by the communities who use them a lot. The 3 that request for tenders advertised but not yet awarded, there's quite a selection there, isn't there? We've got provision of secretariat lobbying and advocacy services for regional cities Victoria. Interested to see how that comes in. Another culvert job, and the regional sale yards commercial lease expression of interest. I'm very interested to see what that reveals as well. So it's quite a mix there, but happy to move the motion to accept them all.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Very good. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Adam?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 16 of the agenda, item 11.2, reserve accounting policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Thompson.
I'll move that the council adopt the reserve accounting policy as attached, and 2, endorse the establishment of the following reserves: The statutory reserves are the cash in lieu of car parking, developer contributions fund, recreational land contributions, and the discretionary reserves are waste management, strategic land sales and acquisition, defined benefit superannuation, and insurance property settlements.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I wasn't here when council was briefed on this, but I've read through the agenda item, Mayor Saleh, and I think this is excellent council policy. I've been in a lot of organisations, and when money comes into an organisation from whatever source, and that source is not just ready to be acquitted, sometimes there could be a tendency to re-establish that monies in other places. What this policy document does now is fairly and surely puts each of those designated reserves in its place. For example, car parking, cash in lieu of car parking. That means to me that money received can only be used in the car parking sphere, and I think that's fantastic, because then we can all budget nice, and we do it already. But this puts it on a very formal footing, and there's nothing better in a public organisation such as local government to put everything where everybody can see. Again, in the discretionary reserve, waste management, strategic land sales and acquisitions, and this is one area that that you could be using the funds elsewhere, but I'm glad to see that has been specifically put in there. And of course, the defined benefit superannuation, there's not much left of that. Now the defined benefits, it used to be the big issue, and it was a good money spinner for those who retired some years ago. Not that I would know anybody like that. And the other thing is insurance property settlements. Again, having come through recent floods in 2022, we know that the insurance monies from the properties that have been affected, the monies will go to the proper reserves. This policy seeks to formalise processes for identification, administration, use and reporting of restricted funds and improve compliance with AASB 101, that is the presentation of financial statements. Fair and square, and I really do commend Chris Teitzel and his team for putting this together. I think it's a fantastic agenda item.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Dobson has covered it all once again, but I'm comfortable, and I'm actually very pleased to see the high level of transparency that we will bring, council will bring in its reporting of financial statements. And in terms of these reserves, we are already managing it, but perhaps managing it in a way which is not very visible to everyone through the financial statements. But going forward, if this policy is approved, then the reserves will appear as a separate line item under the equity heading on the balance sheet. So it just shows that council is very serious about enhancing its enhancing level of transparency.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. This is a really good policy that we've put out now, and I think the executive summary, one paragraph, really encapsulates the whole motion, that this policy will strengthen council's management of cash balances and financial reserves through consistent identification, administration and use of externally and internally restricted financial service reserves. So it's just an extra measure to ensure our responsibility in relation to these funds. I'm sure they've always been correctly categorised, but this will be another level of insurance, so I'm very happy with that.
Very good. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? I'll go to you, Councillor Dobson. I'm not going to say too much more because you did cover it very well, and obviously you, Councillor and Councillor Adam, but Chris, obviously you and your team, very open and transparent in this policy, so good work. That's pretty much all I can really add because everything else has been said, and I think this is really, really a positive policy that we're hopefully going to endorse now. Any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, Mayor Saleh, it's all been said.
Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 21 of the agenda, item 11.3, April 2024 monthly financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion?
I move that the council note the April 2024 monthly financial report as attached.
Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
Second that motion.
Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saley. A couple of pleasing things come to mind, and one of them that the council's projecting operating deficit has improved slightly to 3.3 million. It was much more than that at the start of the year, and mostly because the insurance claims income from property damage relating to the October 2022 flood event and the March 2023 storm event has come through. This has been a terrible burden on our council and a terrible burden on our ratepayers, and not only a financial burden but also a moral burden that we've all had to bear. And I guess this is some relief that this money has finally come through. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that our liquidity remains high, very high. The adopted budget back nearly 12 months ago suggested liquidity, that is current assets in relation over current liabilities, was 139%. It currently sits at 161% and is steady. It's been around that 161% for the last 2 or 3 or 4 months, and I think it really is a great, it's a great result. It's projected at the end of the year, at June, which is only a month away. This is the April figures we're talking about, but 2 months on, the cash and equivalents that we are expected to have in stock is $17 million, and the other financial assets is 15, so a total of $32 million. As of April, we had 28 million invested, and the weighted average of interest is about 4.79, with the year-to-date interest earned is 1.48, and we do all remember it was only a few months back that interest wasn't even to be considered. So now at 4.79, it's probably gone up slightly, about 0.04%, since we last looked at this. So that's a great result there. In terms of debtors, I note that out of our total outstanding debtors, most of it is 30 to 60 days. There's about 760,000 in outstanding, and 60 days and over is 882. And most of those would be because of payment plans that have been used. And given the fact that, in this day and age, interest rates on housing and the cost of living squeezes, our rates department should be congratulated in the manner in which they've brought this money in and the manner in which they go about their business. They have empathy and yet are firm enough when the firm is required. The rates payments this year outstanding is about 29%, same as last year, so that's a very good result. The one area that I think, and we discussed this just of recent days, is our capital budget. The council plan was a total of 90%, and we're only projected to go 73% at the end of the year. Not quite up to scratch, but each of these figures have an underlying discussion point with them. No need to go into it, except that I note that there's the two bridges, the Toolamba Bridge and the Watts Road Bridge. I think between them is about $800,000 that haven't been spent there in capital budget. And that's probably a pretty good reason, because I think both of those bridges were, in the foreseeable future, will not be there. I think they're more of a long term. So there's not much use spending money on pre-works on those issues until they're all ready to go. Just in closing, I think that's right. The other thing that, when you look at this bank statement, the balance sheet that we're looking at, we received some of this year's money in last year's budget, so that's why this year the figures are slightly skewed, but at the same time it all works out, as Councillor Adam would say. It's only a moment in time, Councillor Adam, that we're looking at those issues. So I think that's probably about. I had one last thing I just wanted to bring up. I'll see if I can find it. I talked about the bridges, and I think that's probably about all. all in all, Mayor Sally, a good and fair balance sheet and set of accounts. You know, we're contracting pretty well down the line, so I congratulate everybody in getting things moving, keeping things moving.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, thank you, Ms. Sally. Let's pick up a couple of points that Councillor Dobson spoke about, and I think just for clarity perhaps for the public in terms of that. So, in terms, you know, year to date regarding the capital works expenditure, and you know we're at the end of April for these figures, and it's 67% of what the adopted budget was going to be. And you think, well, gee, 2 months, you've got a whole third to get through. And, you know, in reality, we're sort of at the pointy end of the budget cycle, whereas we've already now released out to the public the draft budget for next year. And so we're finishing up with this particular one. So we're really at the pointy end of where one intercedes with the other one. And so particularly around capitals, we have to look at that and see where that lies, and you know, and in the future, how do we, you know, try and get as much as 100% that we can get when we do the capitals. It's not always that easy, and there's variables in regards to it, but very much, you know, when you look at it and the public looked at it and you go, well, you only use 2/3 and you've spent 10 months on it, you know, why is it that particular case? But there's always rationale in and around that. I think the point that you made in regards to the liquidity ratio of 161%, and that's been tracking. Yeah, it's obviously desirable. It's a good range to be in. And when we release the budget for the next coming year, I think if you look at it, our liquidity ratio is only about 111%. And normally, if you see a drop of 50%, you know, alarm bells would ring. But there's rationale in and around that. And I think that maybe in regards to some borrowings and projects and things like that, you add all that together, and that's in the short term, back to 111%, and I'm sure the liquidity ratio in the years to come after that will raise back to the desired range. But just to let people know that, you know, the checks and balances from council when we get our briefings in regards to finances is that we do ask all these questions, probably the same questions that you're sitting home in the lounge room thinking at the same time. We ask that of our council officers, and we get the responses back that we require.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson, any closing comments?
No, it's all been said. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillors, will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 25 of the agenda, item 12.1, Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee, nomination of representatives. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Latson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 25 that the council adopt Robin Slee as a community representative to the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee for a term commencing on 1st of June 2024 and concluding on 1st of December 2025.
Fine, thank you, Councillor Latson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to. Thank you, Mayor Sally. This is an excellent nomination. When you think of Robin Slee, and for those who do know her, really, she's you know, she's history aficionado personified. She knows so much about the history. She's grown up here. Family has got strong roots here in around the Golden Valley, and the Trailblazers in a lot of ways. And you think of Robin, you think of dedication, you think of commitment. She's really probably Shepparton's Yoda of knowledge and history. And I really look forward to, you know, her continuing input.
You like those ones? Very good. Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Yes, thank you. When you talk about Robin Slee, you obviously go to her father, Murray. Murray was a former councillor, community leader, mayor, businessman, and a great advocate for Greater Shepparton. He was the person who made sure that all our returned soldiers were remembered at the gates at the showground. So the Slee family has a very wide, large community involvement. So if Murray's around, if he's awake, happy birthday, Murray. He's getting on a bit in these days. I missed him the other night. But no, the Slee family, as Councillor Brophy said, the Slee family have a great history of involvement in the community, and Robin Slee is an excellent representative as an appointment to the advisory Heritage Advisory Committee.
Good. Thanks, councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes, I would also like to echo the sentiments of my fellow councillors. Having been on this Heritage Advisory Committee as a council representative for a few years, I've worked with all members, and especially the energy and enthusiasm that all members, including Robin Slee, bring to this committee is just, we are very fortunate to have her on this committee, and I am very pleased to see that Robin continues to be an active member of the committee. So thank you, Robin, and all members of the committee for their continued passion for heritage in our region.
Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you. I'd also like to congratulate both Robin Slee and the Heritage Advisory Committee on this appointment. It's a match made in heaven. I'm sure they'll have a lot to talk about. I also sat on that committee, and some of it was overlapped with Councillor Abdullah at the time, and was fortunate enough to see the process and development of the heritage murals that were recently opened at Monash Park. So to have an advisory committee having tangible outcomes like that just shows their absolute passion, absolute drive, and absolute desire to improve the knowledge of the community in terms of what we have in our history. So it's a great appointment.
Councillors like to speak to the motion? No, any closing comments, councillor Ladson?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Ali. I just want to fully endorse all my fellow councillors' comments and welcome Robin Slee to the committee that I am a part of.
Very good. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 29 of the agenda, item 12.2. Economic Development, Visitor Economy and Major Event Strategy 2024 to 2028. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move the motion that the council release the draft Economic Development, Visitor Economy and Major Event Strategy 2024 to 2028 for public consultation pursuant to council's community engagement policy as attached.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Ladson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Councillors were briefed a couple of weeks ago, I think, on this particular item. We had representatives from Urban Enterprises come in and spend a half an hour or so, or an hour with us, broadly outlining their work that they've been doing and that they're going to do in the future. Look, I think council have embarked on similar type external people coming in over the years to try and streamline our vision for the future. We do this every few years, and this is another attempt. I shouldn't say attempt. This is another actual engagement with this company. We were given a broad overview. We weren't given enough detail, and I know there is more detail in actually the actions that they have devised to achieve the outcome that we're after. So I've got full confidence that this will actually be very beneficial to council. So I'm looking forward to more detail as this goes out to public consultation and then back to us again. So I've got a bit of faith in this mob, I suppose, in delivering what we need to have delivered. And even if some of the things that we were told, we already know to a degree, we're aware of our strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes it's good to get them open to us again so we can see them, focus on them. And I think that's what this policy is about, or this work is about, us focusing on the intricacies of what we need to do to move forward. So as I said, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the actions that this report or this work will reveal in the future. So I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Ms. Ali.
Yeah, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion?
Thank you. I know it makes no difference whether or not I object. Money's been spent and we have the document in front of it, but I guess it's an in-principle objection because I don't find that this document was value for money. For me, it was rehashing what our policies already tell us, and it was more of a watered-down version of what we already had. There's very few tangible actions there. There's a lot of motherhood statements, and from paying consultants who don't live here to do this kind of work, So it's no criticism on the consultants, they were just doing their job, but I do believe we could have been a lot more efficient if we had done this in-house, and considering how much engagement and consultation was done for this document, I am quite disappointed that it lacks that robustness. It could have actually been separated into 3 different strategies, in my opinion. None of it was cohesively linked together. Possibly better presented to the next council in terms of where we're at and have been probably for a very long time now. And it's a useful document for that sort of learning, but for the price we paid, I don't believe the content was bang for buck.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Look, I certainly take the point that Councillor Summer brought up there, that, you know, it's really a strategy, it's not an action plan, and I think Councillor identified that as well. And it probably wasn't anything that we didn't know. However, it was tying in the policies, the other strategies and existing plans that we have out there together under one umbrella, and being able to focus it for the next 4 to 5 years. I think the jury's still out with me on the effectiveness of this particular strategy. However, it's very detailed and there is a lot of work that has gone into it. Could it have been done in-house? Well, there's pros and cons for that. Cost saving versus expertise, plus time resource, plus independence. So there's a lot of things that you could be taken into account with this. However, this is just one, but one really key one, pathway to our economic development and tourism future. And it's a blueprint, and I think the devil in that side of things for the next 5 years is how that blueprint becomes actions.
Thanks, Councillor Brophy. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. Well, it's an important strategy, and I read it. I feel that a lot of information has gone in there, a lot of ideas. There's one aspect of it that I do want to highlight though, which is, to me, it's a gap and it's a missed opportunity. And I provided my feedback to council officers. Given that it's still in consultation and still in the draft consultation phase, I haven't lost hope yet. But what I would like to see is to apply a gender lens to this strategy. At the moment, this strategy comes across as gender neutral. There is actually zero reference to gender equality in this strategy, whereas I feel that this was a missed opportunity, and this is one place where the strategy could have shown that how this organisation is committed to promote gender equality in all spheres of life, in all areas of work that we undertake. So yes, so that's my main concern and my sort of feedback around the lack of a lack of application of any gender lens. But I really hope that going forward, as it advances to other stages, council officers and of course the community will also highlight this gap and provide some feedback. And then overall, I would also be interested in a commentary on the previous strategy, because as we know that this is sort of an ongoing work, this is something that council has been doing for a very long time. And given the knowledge and subject matter expertise that that council has within its organization on this topic, I'm also wondering what the main barriers were to deliver this strategy in-house. We sort of, is it a lack of capacity? Is it a lack of capability? What is it? So that's the thing. And yes, one last thing is that I'm very interested in also finding out or having a commentary, some kind of commentary as a part of the strategy around our previous strategy outcomes. I mean, what is it that's different? What are the new directions in this strategy compared to our previous strategy? That is something that is not very obvious to me, and I'm not sure if others who will be reading this strategy would, will be able to gauge that. Yes, but again, it hasn't finished yet. It hasn't finalized yet. So happy to endorse this to go out for a community consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Thanks.
I will, but only, I guess, to tie all of it together. I think all of this is well and has really highlighted the questions that we've been asking during the briefings and leading up to this document coming to this council meeting. I don't think I wholeheartedly support it, but I'd probably like 70%. I think that it's not, I was left, I think, wanting more, and I feel like that was the sort of consensus around the room, was that it just didn't feel very inspiring of what comes next. It felt like it's something we'd seen before, and I don't think any of us are supportive of strategy for the sake of strategy and you know, consultants for the sake of consultants and all of those things. I think that's all been really highlighted around the room today. So I guess how I just wanted to tie it together was to just bring it back to that today what we're doing in this meeting is approving it to go out to public consultation. So I think I can say on behalf of everyone, I really encourage you to let us know what you think of it. You know, this touches in quite a number of different sections of our community. It does tap into three very distinct, you know, economic development, busier economy and major events. That covers a lot of our community and a lot of different aspects of it. So I think we're mostly supportive of passing this through this next step to consultation. And now we really want to hear back about your thoughts and whether you think it is a complete document and it is, you know, fully standing on its own 2 feet, or whether there is some more work that we can be done to it. That's why we put it out for consultation. So I just encourage anyone that's watching, and, you know, Hamish in the audience, if you could please make sure to provide us with your feedback, because that's why we put these out for consultation, and we do encourage you to engage and to let us know your thoughts. So I'll tie it up with that.
Very good, thanks, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No closing comments, Councillor Adam?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Look, I accept everything that's been said around the table. As I said earlier, I think we were slightly underwhelmed when we first heard the report, but on reflection, I know there's a lot more detail underneath what was presented to us. And sometimes we can become comfortable in our own views in regard to knowing our strengths and weaknesses. We've been saying that for years. We know that tourism is something that we should be trying to develop, although we do lack natural attributes as far as tourism goes, so we should be building different things. Now, occasionally, as I said, we become stagnant in our views. A strategy like this from an outsider, so to speak, sometimes brings different visions that we don't have ourselves, and it's good to get them to come in and focus on the strengths that we think are strengths and we believe we know them. Maybe they're not as strong as we think they are sometimes, and our weaknesses may not be as weak as we think they are as well. So I'm happy for this to come through. And now, as I said, there's a lot more work underneath what was presented to us. So hopefully when it comes back from public consultation, there'll be some different points of view coming through, and that'll add to the development of the strategy. And I've got every confidence ultimately that it will be a very valuable piece of work and a good strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Okay, councillors, we'll now go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we go to page 35 of the agenda, item 12.3, sponsorship and partnership policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put as a motion?
So, Mayor Sally, I'll move that the council adopt the sponsorship and partnership policy as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
The most important sentence in the executive summary, I think, sums it all up, and this policy is to facilitate support of suitable events and projects in line with council plan and relevant strategies. Council gets a lot of requests, and where do they fit in within our policies? Where do they fit in with the overall strategy of the municipality? And I think this gives a clear and concise report to those who are looking for sponsorships or partnerships, how they are to go about it, what are the criteria, what will the council be looking for, and it makes the whole experience much more defined. There's really not much more you need to say about this. Once again, this is just good policy from our economic development team, and Jed, I congratulate her and her team on putting this together. This puts everybody, I suppose, front and centre as to how we go about our business in this space.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Sally. The first word I thought of when I finally came across our briefing was hallelujah. We got there because we had actually there's been a bit of a hiatus in between because of the delays due to a number of factors, but particularly the Vargo report, that we're now able to move forward with, putting together a particular policy with sponsorship and partnership. And the Vargo report we highlighted a number of things that we needed to make sure and tick a few boxes with, and this policy, I think, does that very, very well. And this will certainly lead, I think, to better sponsorship outcomes, only for council, but also for the sponsors, the organisations, profit, non-profit, and also providing better surety for the events, and for the partnerships on the tenure, on the costs, and in the in-kind support that's given as well. This is a better outcome for our ratepayers and for our sponsors and partners.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No. Any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, all been said.
Very good, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 41 of the agenda, item 12.4, grant distribution policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have the council put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
My turn again. That the council adopts the grants distribution policy as attached.
Very good, Councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Summer. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. In line with the last document that we were talking about, which is the sponsorship and partnership, the one important sentence here is that the policy is an overarching which guides and informs stakeholders in relation to the processes, the practices and the procedures that council will follow when developing and delivering grant programs. Not much more needs to be said. This is a straight out policy document. I think it's been well documented, well worded, and again I congratulate the team in putting it together.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I'll just echo what Councillor Dobson had to say on that one. It is, once again, housekeeping, it's good governance, and there's some sections in there that were outlined by Vago that just needed a little bit more detail within policy, which we've done. So I'm happy to accept that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sally. This is one motion where the executive summary pretty much covers everything, and there's not much room to add much to it. So I'm just going to read the last line, which I think is really relevant and important to the community. That, and I quote, "The recommendations will also allow the implementation of effective controls for council's grant programs to give the community confidence that public money is spent as intended." And I think that's crucial to the whole policy. It's a signal or a symbol of our transparency, so the community can be feel confident that we are spending the money as intended, and it's going to good causes.
Good, thank you, Councillor Adam. If there's nothing else, any closing comments, Councillor Dobson?
No, thank you.
Very good, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 46 of the agenda, item 12.5, which is the lease of land to kids undercover to realise a Village 21 development. Lift-in report from the table. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move the recommendation on page 46 that the council resolves to lift the matter from the table.
You can have a councillor second that motion. Councillor Brophy.
Did you second?
Favour? Motion carried. Okay, councillors, we just go over the page to page 47, item 12.6, lease of land to kids undercover to realise a Village 21 development. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
I think I will bow to Councillor Spinks, who I think
Sure.
by a fraction of a second beat me.
I would like to.
Okay, you can go.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. I would like to move that the council, having previously undertaken a community engagement process in accordance with section 115 of the Local Government Act 2020, 1, revise the leasing term of council-owned land at 20 to 22 Perryvale Drive, Shepparton, to kids undercover for a term of 20 years at a peppercorn rental $1 per annum plus GST to realise a Village 21, and 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and enter into an agreement for lease with kids undercover to realise a Village 21.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I get a councillor second that motion, please? I need a seconder. Councillor Adam.
Thank you.
Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would, thank you.
Sally, may I before councillor Spinks, may I suggest that if this motion is defeated, I foreshadow an alternative motion?
No problem. Thank you, councillor Spinks.
Thank you. So the reason that I enthusiastically shoved my hand into the air is because I recognise that there was most likely to be a foreshadowed motion to be moved, and knowing what that will be requesting in terms of community engagement and community consultation. I want to make sure this has the opportunity to move forward without undue delay first, before we discuss that option. So I thank councillor Dobson for allowing me to proceed first with this option. This has, this particular item, 2 years ago, October 2022, we put this to consultation, and then we enthusiastically approved this particular project to move forward, which is to realise a Village 21 project with Kids Undercover, which in its bones is a social housing project that supports 6 young people to have housing within our municipality. We put it out to consultation way back then, and we did hear from the community, and all of those submissions related to the project itself and the purpose of the land, and we've seen this happen over and over again, and the concerns around the type of person and the management of the project, and all of these concerns that we're able to then negate or protect council against in ways that are appropriate, or able to dismiss as not being relevant or appropriate. And we've gone through all of that process. And the only reason that this particular project came back to us is because the funding body that was supporting Kids Undercover changed the terms that they would allow funding to be provided for. So that's come back to council asking us to not to change our lease terms from being 10 years with the option of further to being a 20-year lease. And then a month ago, this came to our council meeting, and it was laid on the table because there were councillors who required further information. And as a rule, we tend to be supportive of laying an item on the table if it is for councillors to gather more information. We've now been able to do that. We've had further briefings with the relevant parties. We've been able to ask our questions. And I hope that that has meant that all councillors that feel satisfied that they fully understand the conditions and the projects and have been able to ask their questions and have been able to have their concerns or queries addressed, fully to be able to consider this today. Because ultimately, what we're being asked once again to do today is to support the realisation of a project to support 6 of our young people in this community to have homes. And we know every single consultation we've done, every single community forum we've done, every time we've asked the community what Shepparton needs most, every bit of data that comes back says housing is the #1 priority Shepparton needs. Social housing is the #1 priority our community needs, and that we are in a housing crisis for everyone, but for young people especially. And what we're talking about is not just young people who are trying to move out of home for the first time and have to stay at home longer because they can't find a rental property. We're talking about young people that are moving out of the foster care system and may not have homes to fall back on or safety nets to be supported by. And that is entirely what this model does. It creates that safety net and that support with built-in mentors, with ongoing supervision and with supports to give those young people the best opportunity at starting their adult lives that they can possibly have. And we have the opportunity in front of us to say yes to providing that for 6 of our young people. And I believe in our young people, I believe in this project, and I believe in council's ability to provide positive outcomes for our community. And this is one of those moments in front of us. We've seen this a few times over our council term, and it can be difficult to get past this step. But I think today that we can do it without needing to push it down the road another couple of months to go out and gather a lot of what will be the same information. When we did that initial consultation, the concerns weren't around the lease terms. We know that. We've seen it come back. It wasn't around the lease time. Nobody is waiting 10 years to move into that area because they're hoping it'll fall over and we won't, renew the lease. It's not about the time. This is a legacy opportunity to provide housing for 6 young people moving forward in our community. The same as has been done, we've seen it positively with the foyer. That is such a success story. We've seen it with multiple other projects. We also know there are many social projects that are happening that don't go through this level of council approval. And this one is stuck here with us. And we can keep being a barrier to it. We can keep getting in the way of it. We can keep making them jump through hoops. We can make them jump through one more hoop if we really feel the need to do it. But I think we don't have to. And I think today we can just get on board with this and we can create a really positive outcome for our community, for the young people in our community, by allowing to realise this project and to build this project on what is a block of land we aren't using. Like, it's a blank block of land that's doing nothing right now. It's not environmentally supporting anything. There's no park we're ripping out or anything. It's just a blank block of land that we happen to own, and someone has found a really worthy purpose for it. And it will live or die with the decision that we make around this table. So I am encouraging us to not need it to jump through another hoop, to just support it, because we know that it is good. We know that it is strong. It is a proven model that is supported by the reputation of the, partners we will be involved with. And we have the opportunity to just say yes today rather than kicking it down the road. So that's why I wanted to go first, and why I wanted to give it the opportunity to tomorrow be being pushed forward, as opposed to a couple of months down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right, thank you, Ms. Sally.
No problem. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. Firstly, I think all councillors in council really want this to succeed. I agree with Councillor Spinks in so much that she put forward there. And initially, if you think about it, it actually fell over earlier on when it was earmarked for the north end of Shepparton as well. So it was deemed as unsuitable by the particular lessees at the time, that wasn't going to be appropriate for that particular point. And to succeed, that was made really clear why we wanted it to succeed. Through the briefings, we had the public exhibition, has been highlighted, the submissions, the hearing of submissions, particularly the objections that came forward. And we asked poignant and probing questions of the council staff and the kids undercover, and from all their particular presentations. And rightly so, in December 2022, we resolved to move forward with this. And I believe then, as I believe now, that this is a very good model, and it's particularly when it's administered by the kids undercover. They've got a great reputation, and I think it ticks so many boxes there. This was then presented back to councillors last month with amendments to the original past recommendation that we had put forward, and predominantly was in and around the lease. We were offering at a peppercorn rent for the lease a period of 10 years, plus probably a further 10 years. A project that had demountable dwellings, and we were concerned then, about all of the things that were put forward to us. And I felt at the time, particularly the lease that was put forward, that, as I do now, that it was very fair and reasonable agreement that had been put forward. But alas, their funding with their provider had stipulated that they require a minimum of 20 years. Now this ties up council's asset with very few conditions on it to cease the leasing arrangements should we need the land. The issue here is that they have asked council to reconsider what we had agreed the lease to be, and the lease lies really. The issue really does lie between Kids Undercover and their financier. It's not really with us. We'd already agreed to the 10-year term. We are the landowners, and we set the terms and the conditions. Whilst Kids Undercover will be the leaseholders, and they look after the dwellings and the maintenance and all of that, they're also entering into a partnership with a third party to provide the support for these young people. And it's only fair to the residents locally that this project is all as transparent as possible. On that basis, not only have the goalposts changed, but also from our original recommendation, but the players have also interchanged as well. I desperately want this to succeed, but not at any cost to our ratepayers and to be dictated by the lessees in what terms and conditions there should be. I sadly and reluctantly can't accept that particular change at this point in time of the lease. Let's work to achieve a positive outcome here, because I think these young people, they need a home and they deserve an opportunity for their future.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Thank you, councillor Sommer.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I'm just weighing up both sides here. I'm tending to lean towards what Councillor Brophy was saying. Yes, we do have a housing crisis. We're all very aware of that. But that doesn't necessarily mean we should jump at every housing proposal that we're given. I personally think this is a really great model and I do want it to go ahead, but that does not mean we shouldn't do our due diligence as councillors. As Councillor Brophy said, the goalposts have shifted since the last consultation. We are now looking at a 20-year lease. So in fairness to the community, I believe that they should be given an opportunity to submit, whether it's in strong support, fair support or not. In terms of, again, jumping on things that come across our path because we're very passionate about the cause. I don't know how much worth this is, but I believe we should hasten slowly. There's still time. It's not likely to fall over. It doesn't actually, if this wasn't accepted right now, it doesn't impact on their funding at all. It still offers the Chief Executive Officer time to negotiate an agreement lease, and that may actually give councillors a little bit of oversight into what is in that lease. It just means it can't be signed until it comes back to us again. So I'm still in two minds, but we'll wait and see what the rest of the debate says. At the moment, I see no harm whatsoever in going out for consultation, in fairness to the community that it may or may not impact.
Thank you, councillor Sommer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? So Abdullah.
I'm speaking in support of the motion that is in front of us. And I have heard your comments raising some concerns. I'm still not convinced that the concerns are significant to the extent that we want to delay this project. While I appreciate the need for thorough scrutiny and due diligence and all of that, I believe that some feedback has been overly critical, focusing on minor details rather than the broader vision and potential impact of the project. To me, the goalpost has not changed. The goalpost is to provide solutions for our critical social housing problem. Only last week we had this philanthropic summit in Shepparton, and the whole of Greater Shepparton was there in terms of philanthropic leadership and community organizations. And the biggest or the most critical issue that was identified for this region was the lack of affordable housing. And everybody was trying to brainstorm that how can we bring our solution, how can we address this problem basically. And the theme that came out was that we need innovative solutions, we need creativity, we need collaboration, we need genuine commitment. So after hearing that, all of that is something that we can achieve right now by supporting this motion. The concern around the lease term, whether it's 20, that it was initially 10 years and now it's asking for 20 years. Well, it's really a non-issue because the original lease term also included a provision for a 10-year extension, which in effective terms would have meant 20 years. Now, are we saying that we go back for community consultation just to check whether our community is okay with 20 years instead of 10 years? Are we really, I mean, what if, whatever the answer is, but to me, it's not going to be greater than the need that even in 10, 20 years, if we are sitting here not making a decision, that problem will still exist. So to me, it's about looking at the broader picture. And as I've said, this level of being hypercritical not only hampers our progress, but it also seems to detract from our shared commitment, as I've said, for addressing the pressing need for social housing and affordable housing in our region. The council officers, as far as I'm concerned, they have addressed all the concerns in a very professional manner. And so let's remain aligned with our mission. And the mission is to support and uplift our community through this vital project And, I would dare say that it's worth noticing that, that had this been a non-social housing project, such as a business development initiative, such as a CBD revitalization project, I personally do not believe that the same level of delayed approach would have been welcomed by anyone. There's this inconsistency of approach that I have seen time and again during my council terms, whenever there is an issue that is actually addressing our affordable housing needs. So I
Point
am.
of order, I don't really like the implication that we're against all social housing. I mean,
Well, that is my assessment from the developments that have taken place, and I am entitled to my opinion.
maybe it's
And it does
matter
not
at hand.
matter, to me, it does not matter. It does not matter whether, it's our land and for 20 years, somebody else will be having some control over that land and whether we want. For me, it's about delivering a solution in a collaborative manner. Whether it's council's land, whether it's a community owned land, whether it's some other philanthropic initiative, we should all be in this together. And, it's something that I'll be very, how shall I say? I mean, Councillor Sam Spinks has very passionately and articulately mentioned everything that this project is needed. This project was needed yesterday. And here we are still wondering whether we should go back to the community and check whether they are happy with the 20-year lease instead of a 10-year lease. And the 10-year lease was already included in the original lease terms. That is my main concern, that why are we being overly critical and hypercritical on this particular matter? With that, I will end, and I just hope that councillors take a bold leadership stance and put some action behind their words.
Uncritical thing.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ladson.
Thank you, Mayor Sarling. Taken on all the feedback, and I'm still sort of on the fence myself. Just the decision as it stands in front of us, we decide whether we want to go out to public consultation on the 10-year lease that's gone to, which has been done already, and then for a 20-year lease, versus housing 6 vulnerable people in our community for, 3 to 6 months, or how long from, once, depending on how this outcome goes. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's, the demand is there. It's obvious. I'm very curious how it's going to play out.
Very good.
Comment.
Thank you, Councillor Ladson. So I'm going to speak against that. I'm coming back. Oh,
It's up to you.
yeah, did you want to speak
Thank you.
against the motion or for?
Yes, I'll speak against.
Okay, Councillor Dobson.
I'd like to commend Councillor Spinks on her reasoning, Councillor Abdullah on her reasoning, Councillor Brophy on his reasoning, and Councillor Summer on her reasoning as to why this project is where it is. But I'd like to take council back to the original motion that was moved by Councillor Spinks. The council, having undertaken a community engagement process in accordance with section 115 of the Local Government Act, receive and note the contents of the submission received or heard, etc., in the conversation report, proposed lease of land. And the second point was endorse the leasing of council-owned land at 20 to 22 Perivale Drive, Shepparton, at a peppercorn rental for 10 years. Now, we went out to the community saying that this was a great idea and a 10-year lease. And I think it'd be fair to say that in the last, since this came up 2 months ago, that we would be in favour of it. However, at the last moment, the 10-year lease has gone to a 20-year lease. Now, without any consultation to the community. I believe that because there are submissions for and against this submission, I think it's only appropriate that this council has an open and transparent process. I'm in favour of the end result, but before I say yes, I want to go back to the community who was affected, who have put in submissions. I want to go back to them and say, this is the new proposal. We want to see how you feel. If there's a general agreement, tick and flick. But at the moment, we've gone to them originally with a 10-year, we've now gone with a 20-year. And this is exactly where councils can get themselves into bother, because they've been to the community on one set of circumstances, but have made a decision on another set of circumstances, albeit one provision. But in my term, in my mind, that 10-year versus the 20-year at a peppercorn rental of $1 a year means that I really think that this council should be completely at ease with the end result of that decision, and I'm not at the moment. I'd like to be made completely at ease. I'm hoping that this process, if the motion is lost and the alternative motion gets up, I'm hoping that the process is swift and it's concise and it's definite and we can move forward.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Before I go to you, Councillor Adam, I'm also going to speak against it. I mean, I don't know where the delay approach comes into this. I mean, from my understanding is we unanimously supported this original proposal. Correct me if I'm wrong. We unanimously supported this proposal. So we all want to achieve a positive outcome. So there's no delay approach with this, because until they knocked on our door with different circumstances, it was business as usual as far as I was concerned. So there's no delay with this whatsoever. The circumstances have changed. We spoke about policies earlier about being open and transparent with community, which is exactly what this is. We proposed and consulted on one aspect of the proposal. That got approved by councillors and they were progressing. They've now come back and things have changed. It's our responsibility, good governance, being transparent, to inform the community that the goalposts change. We are not saying whether we do or don't want to vote against this project. We're saying we proposed 10 years, it is now 20. We still want to achieve a positive outcome, but we're being transparent with you. I'm not interested in hiding things from our community. I'm interested in being open and transparent. If you are wanting to be open and transparent, you will go back out to consultation and ask the community feedback and tell them that the goalposts have changed. We still want to achieve positive outcomes, but the goalposts have changed and we are letting you know about that. So when we vote, I can't be pulled up down the street and be told, you told us it was 10 and now it's 20. Why didn't you let us know? It doesn't take much to communicate, because it's about credibility. And I'm not prepared to lose credibility because we're not prepared to be open and transparent with our community. We have an obligation to be open and transparent. That's what leadership is. So I'm voting against this, and I'm encouraging councillors to consider going out for consultation that won't impact this project. It will come back, and I'm sure we'll get a positive outcome with it. Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Well, there's a lot to digest here, isn't there? This matter was laid on the table, from my understanding, on one issue, and that this was this rental lease time, the agreement, whether it was 20 or 10. Now, just to be clear, the original motion did say 10 years with a single option to renew, which in my understanding means you get an automatic 10 unless you've somehow breached the condition or there's an issue in the first 10 years that we don't want to continue with. Now, those breaches could be they're accommodating more people than there was intended. That could be problems within the general community from the people who've been accommodated. That could also mean the funding's run out for the program and obviously they can't continue. So it was always a 20-year lease in a world where we would expect them, the professional people, we've been briefed, we understand the Village 21 model, it's been successful everywhere else. So I really can't see that being a problem. So effectively it was 20 years, even though it says 10 plus 10. So we're making an issue now, the fact that it's 20. The concern was last time that what if something happened and then we're committed for 20 odd years? Well, I'm pretty confident from our officers that the lease will have a lot of exit clauses in it, and exactly the things that I mentioned. If they change the version of the service, suddenly isn't an accommodation unit for kids who are homeless and need some good guidance, let's say it becomes something completely different, well, that would be a trigger for us to break the lease and many others. I'm completely confident there's enough safeguards in that lease to not negatively affect our community. So if the whole issue is about the lease, I think it's a non-issue, to be honest. The funding stuff, obviously, I think we were told by the representatives of the organisation that they're funded every 3 years, I think, 3 + 3. So yeah, realistically, in 3 or 4 years, maybe there is no more funding and the actual service cannot continue. But from my point of view, the fact that we're getting 6 kids off the street, and from what I understand from the Village 21 model, they've had a really good success rate. You're getting 6 kids off the street, giving them some positive guidance, irrespective of what community they've come from. And we're saving effectively 6 lives today. Maybe in 2 months' time, as has been suggested here, we could effectively still pass this. I just can't see, we're stumbling on this lease problem. And the concerns that were expressed a couple of months ago was that what happens if they don't continue? We committed to staying 20 years to a, let's say, a defunct service or a house that's falling apart. Well, that's not going to happen because they're removable buildings. The lease, from what I understand, stipulates that if they no longer continue supplying that service, they will take those buildings away. If that doesn't happen, they become ours. So from any viewpoint here, we can't lose, but we can save 6 kids, and we can start doing it now. I just can't see why we're stumbling over this. If there's another issue that I haven't heard, well, fair enough. Maybe the model, we're not happy with what they're doing. Well, I haven't heard that expressed by anyone. I think everyone's on the same page as has been expressed, that we do want this to succeed. So let's just do it and get over and done with. And the community, if they really paid attention to the original motion, they would know 10 plus 10 means 20. I rest my case, Your Honour.
Thank you. Councillor Spinks, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start by rejecting the idea that not going to community consultation is not being transparent or is hiding in any way, so we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. I think that there is varying forms of consultation, and I don't support the idea of consultation for the sake of consultation. I don't understand what we expect to get back from doing another consultation. If we were genuinely, meaningfully asking the community what path we should take, if we should go ahead with this project, that would be very concerning because we know the need and we know it's very evidence-based and data-driven why we should be supporting this. But I think what we're actually suggesting to go out for is to just say, what's kind of being alluded to is that we just want to inform the community that the lease conditions have changed rather than really wanting to go out to a consultation. So I don't think it is a necessary process and a necessary step to take. I agree and recognise it's been mentioned that, like, realistically, this is the state government moved the goalposts. The blame should lie there, but the decision will stop here. So I just encourage us to keep moving this forward. I hope that what we're debating today is about the consultation and that regardless this project is going to go ahead, but I'm deeply concerned that by kicking it down the road, we're opening up to further debate and further process that will get in the way of this being a successful outcome. And I genuinely wonder at what point through the questioning and almost distrust that we show to some of these projects that come to our region to try and support our social needs, I wonder at what point they'll stop engaging with us and stop wanting to help our communities because it's just too hard to work with council and too hard to get it through. And that's a really genuine concern I'm starting to wonder about. Being years down the road and debating it the way that we are, it's just so complicated for an issue that we've all expressed we understand the need for, but do we have the willingness to do something about it? I hope that this gets across today. I hope we can just go back to them tonight, tomorrow and say, yes, we support it wholeheartedly, we'll go and do it. If I can't get that, I hope in 2 months' time we're going to have that conversation and get this moving, because the reality that this might not even make it through is heartbreaking and truly beyond belief. but I encourage everyone, just support it today. And genuinely ask yourself, what will the consultation give me that I really need 2 months down the road that I don't already have today? Like, I'll leave it there.
Councillors, we'll now go to vote. All those in favour? Against?
Division?
Went too quick, I'm still not sure.
So, councillors, all those in favour?
Okay.
Favour?
Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 55 of the agenda, item 13.1, Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have the councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Simmer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council dissolve the, number 1, dissolve the Greater Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee. 2, acknowledge and thank all past advisory committee members. And 3, note the formation of an aerodrome user group following the dissolving of the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Simmer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Adam.
The motion, thank you.
Councillor Simmer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep it very short. This is just transitioning from a very formal advisory committee into a user group so that it can better serve the needs of the people and the users of the aerodrome. Apparently, the people on the committee expressed that they want to move away from the current structure. So I do hope that that is 100% accurate and we don't get some angry phone calls after this decision, but personally I'd be in favour of that, so yeah.
Good, thank you, Councillor Simmer. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, not really.
Good. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillors?
Yes, yeah. Maybe just to expand a little bit more, absolutely everything Councillor Summers said was correct, and I'm sure it is absolutely true. But also just to focus on that detail around the user group still existing being formed and then existing moving forward. So there's still that way for the users of the aerodrome to engage with us. It just means there isn't that formal ongoing administrative support that is quite resource intensive. And also the demands of being a regular committee member that are placed on the community members that are a part of that, that committee. So this, I think, is just a much more common sense way to move forward with this the user groups of this particular asset in a way that benefits both the users / community members and also the council. So, but there will absolutely still be that avenue for engagement and for communication moving forward. It's not a complete, dissolving of any communication. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Summer?
Yes, thank you. I better say something. It would be very remiss if I didn't thank the committee members and the people who use the aerodrome for all of their input. It is an outstanding facility. Council have full support in that I won't say that location because that's always has a little bit of a question mark over it, but at this point council has full support of that facility at that location and the people who use it. It's hopefully we can have ongoing relations in a congenial and mutually effective manner. So just
Very good.
quoted when you move stuff.
Councillor Summer, okay. If there's anything else, councillors, we'll now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. We now go to page 59 of the agenda, item 13.2, which is revoking of public toilet policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council will revoke the public toilet policy.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Latson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much. Unlike how it reads, we are not just revoking all the work we've done to date on public toilets. This is a revoking of a policy so that we can move towards a strategy that is in need of review. Probably surprising to most is how contentious the subject of public toilets can be out in the community. There's always a lot of public input. It does impact a lot of people, families with young kids, people with continence issues. The locations need to be appropriate. There needs to be significant crime infrastructure as well as privacy. The policy and the strategy are both very good documents. I hope we don't lose anything in either by revoking this before we've actually put forward our new strategy, which is something that was a concern, but it does say in here that we will be doing that very soon, so I have every faith it will exist, just in a more efficient and condensed manner.
Very good, Councillor Summer. Councillor Ladson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 62 of the agenda. Item 14, confidential management reports. There is one here under 14.1, designation of confidentiality of information. The following report and 7 listed attachments have been designated confidential under the Governance Rules 108 and in accordance with the definition of confidential information in the Local Government Act 2020 in brackets the Act. That intention to sell land, completion of Local Government Act processes. These documents contain information which is consistent with the Local Government Act 2020 definition of council business information, being information that would prejudice the council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. Council's item 14.2, closed meeting to members of the public. The recommendation, can I have a councillor put forward as a motion, please? Councillor Thompson.
I'll move that pursuant to section 66(1) of the Local Government Act 2020 resolve that the council meeting be closed to members of the public for consideration of the following confidential item: intention to sell land at GB Link, completion of Local Government Act processes.
Thank you, Councillor Dodds. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Adam.
Second motion.
All in favour? Motion carried. We'll now close the meeting to the public. back. Item 15, documents for signing and sealing, nil received. Councillors, we go to page 64 of the agenda, item 16.1.1. Councillor activities for April 2024. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Watson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move the recommendation on page 64 that the council receive and note the summary of councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you. Councillor, second that motion, please. Councillor Brophy.
Second that motion.
Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Brophy.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Harley. We were talking earlier today about the point of difference of Greater Shepparton, Shepparton itself, and also the surrounding areas in comparison to other areas in Victoria, I say Ballarat, Bendigo, and some other areas as well. And the point of difference is people coming to the region. We've had a huge amount of people come in April for so many activities. But the biggest point of all of them, if you looked at through there to come here, were our multicultural events. And what sums it up is obviously the conversion on the Goulburn, which is always very, very well supported. You know, the Shepparton Festival, we had the opening here, and right throughout the Shepparton Festival, there are so many opportunities for culture and multicultural there as well. I mean, who could forget the performance of the Numurkah Ukulele Club when they kicked it off at the showgrounds there. But also we had the Punjab Sports Club had their 8th Kabaddi Club here as well. Also attending, was the Shepparton Vaisakhi Mali tournament. We had the flag raising earlier that week, and then the actual tournament itself, which attracted thousands of people from abroad to come and be in Shepparton, and also the Tamil New Year, which I was fortunate enough to attend there. Like, it's just one after the other every single week, and it's just amazing the amount of visitor economy that we actually do receive. Some come for sporting events, some come for the theatre productions that we've got on, some come for a number of other things, but a lot of them have got family here, and it's really well supported. Councillors were out and about on full right throughout April. Pretty good weather, and we there were a number of things we were on, so well done again.
Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Any closing comments, Councillor Latson?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I just want to mention how much of a breath of fresh air the Shepparton Festival was. The calendar and the program of events is just, it's so rich in, events that I think is underappreciated in the community, in my opinion. And I'd just like to see more attendance across the next calendar of events for the Shepparton Festival, concluding with the Converge Festival. The other one is the privilege it is to have on Anzac Day in the councillor role, the wreath laying, and how special that moment is just for us as councillors to, take the time out to honour our war veterans. It's just, it's powerful stuff. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor Latson. If there's nothing else, councillors, we will now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. As we go to page 69 of the agenda, item 16.1.2, councillor activities, in bracket, March 2024. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you. I'll move that the council receive and note the amended summary of the councillors' community interactions and formal meetings of councillors.
Thank you. Can I have councillor second that motion? Councillor Adams.
Second the motion.
Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. We've just done April and now we're going to do March. I think it's a really transparent way of presenting what we get up to. It's clear that we have such an active council. The mayor goes to pretty much everything, and there's a close second with Councillor Brophy. There's just so many events, and we do try to attend as many as we can. Each one we go to offers a lot of value, and we wouldn't have these opportunities not being on council. So it's one of my favourite things to see.
Great, thank you. Councillor Adams.
No, thank you.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Just mentioning in regards to this that it was an amendment from the previous one, so it actually had gone through in the April OCM, Ordinary Council meeting, and there have been some stipulations of who may have attended and not attended, and sometimes that's not always really clear at the time, so this is an amendment to that.
Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Summer, any closing comments?
Just to thank Councillor Brophy for that clarification. That's it.
Very good, councillors. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 73 of the agenda, item 17.1, notice of motion 8/2024, community feedback on the fortnightly collection of the red bin. Councillor, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Letson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 73 to the council. 1, call for a council officer report that seeks community feedback on the fortnightly collection of the landfill bin, in brackets, red lid bin. And 2, for the council report detailing officer recommendations be presented at the July 2024 meeting.
Councillor, second that motion, please. Councillor Summer. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd also like to thank the CEO for Greater Shepparton City Council, Fiona, for accepting my first notice of motion. As stated, I invite our community to provide feedback to council around how the red lid bin transition is working for their household. I'll note that this transition was decided before I was elected to council, thus missing the council discussions around state government targets for circular waste economy by 2030. In addition to also missing the glass recycling decision between a glass drop-off spot like Ballarat and Bendigo, and others currently have, or a purple lid bin for every household, council at the time decided on. I want to commend council's waste services team for their waste education program running across our community, with events such as No Time to Waste being of educational and environmental benefit that fellow councillors and myself attended. I want to commend those that have no contamination and those that are striving to reduce their contribution to landfill. As council has already, I will double down on commending the vast majority of the Tatura community for exemplary low contamination rates. I appreciate this is a generational change to reduce landfill, which everyone on the planet should be striving for. Councillor Summer and I have both previously asked the community on our social media pages how the transition was going, with comments viewable online. This notice of motion requests of council to ask for feedback, listen, and then make a recommendation upon completion of this report. Council has an obligation to meet community needs, and I eagerly await the community feedback if I have my fellow councillor support today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Latson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Just wanted to applaud Councillor Ladson for putting this up. It's been a long time in the making. So finally we have this. I just want the public to be aware that we haven't been doing nothing. It has been worked on. We have been getting regular reports. But as Councillor Ladson said, it's not just on our social media pages. It's on every social media matter that is about council. It always seems to come back to these bin frequencies and collections. So that kind of commentary is gold for data collection. And I think if we open it up for consultation and invite people to formally have their say on whether it is or it isn't working for them, because some of the comments are divided. Surprisingly, they're not all negative. Some people are actually working really well with reduced collections. I am not one of those people, but that's the sort of data we want to collect. And then it's a bit more interactive with the community. So we're getting told a set of information from staff. We're very lucky to be in that position. Now we'll develop a report that considers all of their concerns, and we can relay that back to the community so that they are part of this ongoing discussion, and it doesn't just feel like we're imposing something on them from the top down. So I know that staff did their best to consult prior to this, but it often misses the mark. When we go to consultation, it's really very hard to engage people until it's actually hitting them in the face and it impacts their lives personally. So now, I don't think anyone around this table could logically argue that this is not an issue in the community. So at least one brave councillor, thank you, Councillor Ladson, for bringing this to the table and attempting to address the issue in a very transparent and non-threatening way. I think it's terrific.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion?
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on putting the motion forward, the notice of motion forward. I can't agree with it. and there are real reasons why I can't agree with it. The circular economy is a factor of the Victorian State Government, and has been pointed out that part of it is the waste management sector, that all this new look waste management has got to be put in place by 2030. The previous management got ahead of the game and started 2 or 3 years ago, before we needed to start separating the rubbish from disposable through to recycled through to green waste. And so it should be. It's interesting to note that a number of councils to our on our northern boundary in New South Wales are now following suit. They haven't done the purple glass, but that will come. So this is the separation of various sorts of waste is becoming a nationwide factor. And it's different to what's been happening over the last 50 years. For example, up in Deniliquin, it's only recently that they changed. They threw everything in a big hole out the back of Deniliquin, everything. So they've had to change. And you reckon they didn't go off crook up there, that they had to do this red bin? What's this green bin? What's this yellow bin? People don't like change, and they resist change. It's the Australian way. Somebody's told me what to do, damn it, I'm not going to do it that way, I'll do it my way. And that is why, perhaps in some reasons, why the contamination rate is still too high. I've always contended, and Councillor Summers disagree with me, and I respect that, that this would be a 2-year period where before you see meaningful changes in people's attitudes towards waste. But if we don't start doing it now, and we're not part of the Victorian economy, we're not part of the Australian economy, because we've got to set a standard now that our children, our grandchildren and their children, after we go, they can see what the standards are. And the standards are we cannot take any more than we need to take to landfill, because we're going to run out of landfill, and that's a problem. The circular economy suggests that waste in general should be recirculated in the economy in some other form than what it is at the moment. And it's not hard to do. The nappies, for example, are a brilliant concept of taking nappies and putting it into kitty litter and all sorts of things. Now, who would have thought of that 2 years ago? That is part of the circular economy. The world is changing. Changing brings objections. I know what this report will do. The report will say that there is a majority of people against change, and that's human nature. I understand that. However, we can't go back to the old ways. We can't go back to throwing everything in big red bins and taking it out to the landfill. We can't afford to do that, because the environment won't allow us to do it. We've got to set the standard. We've done a damn good job up to date, Mayor Sali, of setting standards that I think are being followed by the municipalities. This report, when it comes out, and it'll take some time from our staff to do it, they've got to put down their pens and paper, doing other things, and go on with this report, when we're already getting consistent reports of contamination rates, of how things are going, already from our management team, our waste management team, and they're doing a damn good job. So I don't think that this is going to give me any further information other than, people still, not everybody is still au fait with the way we're doing it. There will be objections. That's who you'll hear from. Take it as well. But if there is an overwhelming number of objections, what are we going to do about it? What does the proponent of this notice of motion expect us to do? Does the next step say, let's all go back to big red bins? Because that's where I feel that this notice of motion is heading. That there is something behind it. And that's no problem. I don't say, because of the social media that the two of our councils have been getting about the objections to the waste management processes as we go. I can't agree with the notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Sali. Yeah, reluctantly. I'm really not sure what it sets out to achieve. Look, we were mandated, as every other council around Victoria has been, to reduce our waste to landfill. And and we didn't have many options in regards to that. So we've gone down a particular path. And, anecdotally, people just don't like change. I mean, I don't. Certainly in regards to the purple bin and that side of thing. I think I've got 3 cars in it now, so that's really good. But I mean, everyone's different, and everybody has different circumstances in their household. I think people don't even like the change, even if the benefits are laid out there in front of them of what it can be. There's been some really good results, and I think you highlighted Councillor Ladson Tatura being one of them. A really shining light. Well done. We had been informed at the very beginning that in the rollout period, once it commenced, for a period of time, the actual contamination rates will spike. That actually happens, and we're actually expecting that it will spike. Then it'll stabilise, and then over a period of time it will reduce. And I think that's what we will see. We expect, and as I said, we expect that. This process is so monitored like no other in terms of audits, contamination rates, and look, and by and large, a lot of the areas of our community do understand what we're doing and are really doing a great job. If we don't go down this particular path that we've actually gone down and we don't change, the cost to our landfill will be incredibly increased. And I don't think people realise that. And waste charges will go up, not by a few cents, but by a significant amount. So that by the end, so I'm just trying to work out what this notice of motion wants to achieve. Now, I'm a very positive person, so however the public, feedback that we do get, it's really important and it's really crucial. And, all about transparency and going out to public consultation and getting more information. Hence, like what we did when we had the nappy service, as was highlighted there, where we went for different options with the bins. We were possibly looking at complimentary tip tickets, which might assist, ratepayers as well. Some waste charges in the foreseeable forecasted budget may drop for people. So we are actually on a trajectory that is actually going to achieve really good things. But as I said, for transparency's sake and for customer confidence, I think, out there, I think that the recommendation that's been put forward could bring back some recommendations of some improvements. And that's what we're all on about, I think, those improvements. So I will support the notice of motion and congratulate Councillor Ladson, who I'm sure, Councillor Ladson, wishes too for a better waste outcomes for our environment and for our contractors and our community and for our ratepayers.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
So I agree with what my fellow Councillor Dobson has said quite comprehensively. In terms of, so yes, it was mandated by, but it was the right thing to do. So we can't just the blame or shift the responsibility that we are doing it only because Victorian government has asked us to do. I mean, the reality is that the circular economy is sort of is a very useful concept, and it's something that the whole globe needs to to implement, because if we want to take care of this planet, basically. So when council, okay, so this is about the change, and everybody has acknowledged, and I acknowledge that change is always difficult. There's always the resistance to change, and it's not specific to Australia, Councillor Dobson, it's worldwide, everywhere you see, whether it's organizational change or community level change, change does come up, does bring some anxieties and concerns. In terms of improved waste management behaviors, and we have talked about this in our briefings, and we have been advised that it normally takes 3 to 4 years to have that behavior change, to see those behavior changes in terms of waste management. We have seen this in our own municipality in case of green bins. When the green bins were introduced, initially there was a lot of there was a lot of negativity around that, but now we have seen that right now it's like a non-issue. So the reason that I'm not supporting this is that, first of all, in terms of getting the survey or getting community feedback, it's already built into our process, and council regularly undertakes community consultation survey, so it's going to come as a part of that survey. Also, the timing, I feel it's a bit too early. It's not even been 12 months, so we should wait for at least 12 months. And the third thing is that, what's the intent in terms of, okay, you want to go back, and then and most likely the feedback will be that, people are not happy with the change, then are we going to go back? I mean, going back is not an option. What we want to do and what we have to do is to come up with, to consolidate our education strategy, maybe, waste education. Are we doing it right? Are we reaching the right audience? The whole idea is for our community to develop and inculcate some good waste management practices. And for that, council should absolutely provide all the support. But it's about delivering the right message. And my personal experience is that every time I have faced this sort of criticism from my family members and from my friends even, they've come back with this negative feedback. But after listening to the principles and to the logic that I try to pass on to them, most of the times they have accepted, they have agreed, and they have calmed down. So I think that's what we need to do as councillors. That is our responsibility, to educate our community. And I'm not denying all the challenges and all the stresses that some members of the community have to go through, because perhaps they have got a large family and fortnightly red bin collection doesn't suit them. But again, it kind of forces our community to sort their waste in a very mindful manner. So it's one sort of it's an incentive, or it's an opportunity for everyone to sort of learn the right way of doing things. So again, yeah, I'm keen to see the feedback, but not now. It's not the right time, hence I won't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Well, I'm not sure, thank you, Mayor Sally, whether I'm speaking for or against. Just some commentary here. Just my commentary at the actual motion, because I've heard some high levels talk around the table here about the original intention, about the circular economy. The motion clearly says, call for a council officer report that seeks community feedback on the fortnightly collection of the landfill bin, Redley bin. Okay, so we're looking for some feedback on people's opinions of the frequency change. Fair enough. I think we all understand, it's been said here today, that will most likely be very negative at this point in time. As Councillor Abdullah said, that's already part of the process. Officers are constantly evaluating data that comes back, and that data has been presented to councillors over the journey. We get that from time to time, so we know how we're tracking. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to comment the way we have here today. The more important point of the evaluation is the second one, because I think Councillor Dobson said, well, what's next? Well, what's next is clear. This motion is calling for the report to be presented at the July 2024 Ordinary Council meeting with officer recommendations. It's not just presenting our report back to say, hey, this is what we found out. We're asking them to now formulate some sort of a recommendation as to how we react to this information. And that could be a very powerful recommendation. I don't know what that could be. It could mean, let's change it, let's leave it the same, but then we're forced to have another debate and another decision-making process about that. I feel like we're stirring the hornet's nest here, to be honest. However, it may be useful to a degree to get this information. We all have an idea of what we think we'll hear. We may be surprised, and it may not be as negative as we think, because time has elapsed. But we all agree that this takes more and more, a bit of a longer period of time to really assess the feeling of the community. So as I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, Councillor. That's it. I'm just reflecting on all the commentary I've heard here today. I think it's unnecessary to the degree it's already happening. The problem is this can be a little bit more impactful, because we're asking officers to actually recommend something from this feedback, and that can be slightly dangerous, in my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, yes. So I am very much going to, everything's really already been said that I'm going to say, but I will always take the opportunity to speak if I'm going to vote against something. I think that's just respect. Ultimately, I think that this, look, first and foremost, councillors don't support community consultation for the sake of community consultation. It has to have a purpose, it has to be meaningful, and it has to have a clear outcome that you're trying to achieve. What are we asking? It's, again, all of this has been said before, so I'm just going to barrel through. Ultimately, we are finally starting to see really strong positive benefits from these changes. And I know it might not feel like that from some of the commentary that's out there, but through some rough data that was gathered overnight, we were able to see that we are saving thousands of tonnes from going to landfill. We are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars of what that extra space in landfill is going to benefit community with. We are finally starting to see trends that are still difficult in terms of contamination, but what we're seeing, or the context around that, is that it is a reduced number of individuals that are causing the majority of that contamination, which is all a part of the process of this long-term strategic decision and change that we have put in place. And I suggest that to put this community consultation out here in this form, which will quite frankly undo and destroy all of that good progress that we have made, and I can't think of a quicker way to destroy that trust that is slowly building from this massive change we have asked of community. The reality is, it is very inconvenient to have a fortnightly red bin, but it has to be inconvenient. If it's not inconvenient, if it's convenient, we're just going to put it all in the, like, that's exactly the reason we had to make the change, to make it inconvenient. And I absolutely agree that it has to be inconvenient, but it still has to be achievable. And so along the way, from the very start, it has been a focus and a priority for council to listen from the very start. We have been listening, we have been consulting, we have been watching and observing, and then really actively, directly making changes. Since we swapped the red bin, we have also introduced the nappy service. We have introduced the 360 litre blue bins. We have introduced the textile recycling services. There has been the CDS scheme come in. There has been the purple bin scheme come in to help continue moving them around. We have looked at how we can make this financially, as least financially impactful as possible on the community members. We have made so many changes, and we're still looking at more things that we can, because we are hearing the community and their need in relation to this. All that's left, as we continue to do that ongoing consultation, which looks like many different things. Consultation doesn't have to look like a survey that's out there. It is ongoing, actively being done by all of the council staff that are working in this space to try and ease this transition and make it appropriate for our community. And oh my Lord, where was I going with this? So, I was on such a high horse. So, we have implemented all of these changes. The only thing that is left is whether people like the change. And of course they don't like the change. It's inconvenient, it's annoying. I want to get my red bin picked up more often so I can chuck more stuff in it, but that directly just disregards and dismisses the purpose of the change we have tried to make, and we are making. We're already down the road. We are already making positive outcomes, because as Councillor Dobson started with, this is generational impactful change, because our landfill is going to get full, and we cannot build anymore. We have a limited amount of, we don't talk about this enough, we have a limited amount of space available to put stuff in the ground. That is going to run out, and we as councillors have a responsibility to care about that and to take action today to care about the way that our kids are going to manage. Many future councils are going to be able to manage that situation, and you can guarantee that's going to have financial impacts on community members. So I understand that the red bin is inconvenient, but it sure is better. It is much better to be inconvenient today than all of the really negative benefits that we just don't talk about enough of not making any change today. There's a reason, it's justified, it is important why we have asked our community, and in some ways forced this on our community. We acknowledge that, because that is another important point. acknowledging that we did community consultation on this. They didn't want it. Like, we know that. We know that people didn't want the inconvenient option, and we chose to move forward with that.
Clarification, wasn't there 80% in favour during that consultation?
80% what?
Of the, oh no,
80% weren't.
never mind, take that back.
People are in favour of us making better choices in regards to our waste, but not when it comes to, we talk, like, this has again been explored, not when it actually comes to doing it. When it is inconvenient because you go to your bin and your red bin's nearly full and it's not going out for a week, that's annoying, and I get that, and we hear that, and we understand it, but we're doing this for such a bigger picture, and I understand the need to continue making sure we're meeting the needs and understanding what the challenges and the difficulties of those needs are within our community, and our staff and the teams responsible are ongoing committed to doing that. But to just ask people whether just ask them how they're going with their red bin, the answer was already seeing it. It's what prompted this. It's those social media posts. It's every social media post council does. It's every commentary out there. People are taking time to adjust, and of course they are. We're talking about intergenerational change, and we are not even 12 months down the road. We're already starting to see benefits, but we're already bending under this pressure to have... That'll do.
Sorry, I'm probably a little bit like Councillor Adam for the first time. Not sure where I'm at. But just a few things. So we often hear about these, what's mandated, what's not. So the glass collection point is mandated, not the curbside transition is not mandated. So it's our choice to go to fortnightly collection, there's no mandate around that. There's a mandate to have a glass collection point. I'm in favour of the glass bin. I think that's good. You get a clean product. Whether you get it emptied once a month or once a year, that's irrelevant. I think it's an important addition to offer a clean product in our recycling side of things from the bin. Obviously, where we started this journey. So look, most councillors know, in principle, if feedback is being sought from a councillor, I in principle sort of support that. So yeah, no worries. Look, I know where your end game is, Ben. Sorry, Councillor Ladson. Get it in, blow up the airwaves. Everyone will tell us it's no good, and what are we going to do? Undo it all? I mean, that's effectively what we're possibly asking. I probably look at the fact that I'm happy to ask community get feedback on how things are going, but it's about the questions that we ask, and whether it's, do you like your red bin being collected fortnightly? Yes or no? Well, we know what the answer would be to that. I mean, it's more about what are some of the challenges people are facing? Is it the challenges that people are facing that transition to a small red bin to make things more environmentally, have a better impact on our environment in the early stages? We've made this change, and we've identified some additions with the nappy collection, which I think is amazing. That was directly on the back of community telling us this is not acceptable. That was not in the first rollout of this. I think our first rollout was, if we had our time again, you clearly do things probably different. So the nappy was included. Amazing work to the team, Cal and obviously Gary in the works. Amazing stuff having that inclusion. The 360 litre recycling bin, another one. Amazing inclusion. Not enough people probably know about it. So how do we get that message out there to tell people about that as well? So if we ask the question in a way to not create further divide about us doing something that community don't want us to do, and what does that possibly look like? Can we possibly get some information out of this that we have to genuinely consider around, okay, if you've got a big bin, and we saw it, and I'm one of those people that if I've got 3 big bins and a purple bin, I'm a winner out of this. I'm a genuine winner out of our waste transition in what we're trying to achieve on a cost perspective, and I'm managing things at home in my current circumstance. But if you're not one of those people who have the 3 big bins and get the purple bin, we actually see a proposed saving, and you have the small bins, it actually does come at an increase. What does that mean? I think we have to take that into consideration, and I think this review, all I see it is not possibly completely undoing, but I see it as not wanting to change, but wanting to further improve the service we're delivering. So I'm personally not looking to undo the good work that's been done. I'm not looking to go back personally to red weekly collection. I'm looking for the team to listen to our community and see if there's a trend other than the fact of, you know, I'm not interested in taking my bin out every second week, I want to do it weekly. Is there a trend that is people with a small bin that are the ones that are really hurting it? Is it, you know, what is it that's out there? You know, it's info. The question needs to be done in a way that it doesn't simply say a yes or no, do you like it, because you're effectively going to get thousands of responses clearly saying, do you agree with the fortnightly bin, yes or no? We know what that, but that would be like any question that council could ask with a yes or no response at the end of it, that I think you'll end up with plenty of no's to a lot of yeses. But hey, we might be surprised. People might be really enjoying this transition, and the feedback could be overwhelmingly positive in regards to saying, hey, we're on this journey with you and we want to see things maintained. But if it can identify some small things that we can improve on, me personally, and I think I've sort of set the standard around the table for a number of months now, that if there's an expectation from a councillor to seek additional information, and a review is currently being done in some ways, but this is sort of giving you that exposure, Councillor Ladson, that we're going to have a review undertaken. I mean, I'm happy to get behind it.
Clarification. Just that it's not a review, it's just community consultation.
Just community consultation.
Just that one
Yeah,
point.
the community consultation forces you technically into...
There's no requirement for inclusion of how the data.
No. So
It's just
the
community
information will come back, executive will review that consultation and provide feedback to councillors. That's
Community feedback, sorry, not even consultation.
community feedback. So Fiona, to sort of explain, you'll seek that feedback, it'll get presented to executive and you'll review that feedback and present a recommendation.
Back to council, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, pretty standard,
Based
whatever
on the community
feedback that comes back. So, you know, I'm pretty comfortable with what comes back and fully support executive review and determining what they believe the most appropriate steps are moving forward, acknowledging that I'm not really comfortable in wanting to go back. I'm looking for better solutions out of this, and if that can be achieved through, great. If not, then unfortunately we're just going to waste some resources. But that's my view. Councillor Ladson, any closing comments?
Thank you, Mayor Zali. I just want to thank all fellow councillors for their, input, and, it's obviously something that affects the whole community, whether, how small, whether you've got a small family, a big family, commercial properties and all sorts, and, I just want to double down and say, I want to encourage people to recycle properly and separate waste properly and do all those things for the environment, to be able to meet, the community expectation for council is, hear about core service all the time, roads, rates and rubbish, it falls, and I'm only asking for calling for a council officer report that seeks community feedback on the fortnightly collection of the landfill bin, red lid bin. And then for the council report detailing officer recommendations be presented at the July 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. Nothing more.
Very good. Councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Please, Mr Mayor.
No, that's a split vote. So I think 4 hands went up in favour. So I'll do it again. All those in favour? Against? So I'll obviously maintain my position, so use that casting vote in support. Did you want a division? Okay, all those in favour? Councillor Ladson. So all those in favour? Councillor Summer, Councillor Ladson, Councillor Brophy.
I actually put my hand up before, but you got me halfway. No. Vision.
Okay.
I was halfway.
All right, so I'll do it again. All those in favour? Yeah. Against? Did you still want a division?
Yes, please.
Okay, division. All those in favour? Councillor Summer, Councillor Adam, Councillor Ladson, Councillor Brophy, Councillor Sarli. Those against? Councillor Abdullah, Councillor Dobson and Councillor Spinks. Motion carried. Righto. Councillors, over the page to page 74 of the agenda, item 18, urgent business not included on the agenda. Is there any urgent business that has arisen since the finalisation of the agenda? No. Item 19, close the meeting, which I'll now do at 5. Very good.